Good Morning Mayberry is brought to you by Amass Studio, LLC.
This episode was recorded on September 9th, 2022, with Mx Defying.
Good morning, Mayberry.
They could have just not tried to kidnap and traffic her, and it would have been, that would have been free to just leave her alone.
Reconfigure them, sell stuff, etc., and then years later they'll sell at a profit.
Whew, good morning, Mayberry. Oh my word. This episode is fire. Absolute fire. Before I get into it, I got two things to say. One, I got to go down to LA and connect with the Eat Predators movement. I have been kind of plugging into this scene for a few weeks and got an opportunity to get down there for a couple of weeks and really kind of get a sense of what's going on. I recommend following them on all the platforms you can find them on. Go check out their website, eatpredators.com. They're fantastic. And what's crazy is that they are brand new, basically. They've been around for like 5 seconds. Somehow, organically, they started emerging using rhetoric I've been using for decades and years on this show. So that's cool, right? Now, while it was stunning, it wasn't exactly surprising that the Eat Predators movement dropped right out of the sky directly into my lane. But it's pretty cool. I've been talking about the predatory producers, the predatory industrial complex. That's what they're taking on and, frankly, eliminating and hopefully replacing. One thing I learned is that they have an interest in liberating Sam Maloney from her NDA with Warner Music Group, which is cool, because so do we. And I mentioned it in the previous episode. Warner Music Group needs to abolish all conduct-related NDAs that do not just protect a project or confidential client information. NDAs that protect terrible people doing terrible things should be obsolete, and the companies that create them have every right and capacity to just basically tear them up and throw them away. It is absolutely at the autonomous discretion of the companies themselves and the acting CEOs, which is neat because Warner Music Group has gotten a new CEO. How nice is that? They could do it anytime. One thing to take note about with Sam Maloney's story is she was let go from Warner Music Group in September 2017. And what's interesting is the Harvey Weinstein story broke in October of 2017. So within a month, at most two, but possibly within a few days of each other, Sam Maloney was let go, and then Weinstein's story broke. So that said, dissolve NDAs that protect monsters. That's it. That's all I got for you. Now, we're going to get into it with Melanie, aka Mx Defying. That's MX_DEFYING. Mx Defying is one of the leading Free Britney researchers, and you can find her on Instagram and all over the internet. Look her up, look at her work, go to her website. It is a lot. It is a lot. If you get overwhelmed, you can always call me at 415-3434-420 and tell me what you hate the most about all of this shit. I'm not going to talk anymore. I don't have anything else to say. I just want to get into this conversation with Melanie. It is mind-blowing. Here we go. Welcome, Melanie Carr. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, you've been on fire this week. I've been all over your posts. You're so granular and detail-oriented in your research and like the line of thinking that you're carrying. It's like you have an idea and you're like, I wonder if, and then you look up the research and you're like, You put a little video together and you throw it out like, here's the theory, and I can't get enough of it. I love it.
Well, I had started with my videos doing I've taught college courses online, so I did that kind of thing. And then I realized, no, the kids, they want 60 seconds flash, quick.
Yeah.
So I only started this Instagram, I don't know, like a couple months ago, but I've been on Twitter. I had to start a Twitter account just for this because I was like, I'm going to lose all my people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when you get on something incredibly smart, sometimes it'll cause your community to be like, what are you even talking about, until it gets vindicated, which may take years for like whatever they deem valid to authenticate what you're saying. And then usually by then they forgot that you said it, why they cut you off, or why they were like off put by you, and they just think that they discovered something on their own. So I totally get that.
I mean, like with my family, like I can't, if I say Brittany's name, they like, oh.
I force people through that. I've got a couple family members left that I will force to hear whatever updates there are, and as soon as I say it, they start sighing and groaning, and I'm just like, oh, but you don't understand. Because I'm like, I'd rather irritate them and put a pin in the moment and be able to reference back to, like, remember how I told you so kind of things than stay silent. But
Well, I keep telling them, like, oh, the real story's gonna break soon. Like,
yeah.
I kept thinking, like, I tweeted something to an NBC I spam the fuck out of verified accounts, but I kind of stopped because it takes a long time. But someone from NBC liked my big article, and I was like, oh my god, soon it's happening, and nothing happened.
What was the theme on your big article on that one?
Well, it's about how the private equity firms that owned Caesars Entertainment, which owned Planet Hollywood, where Britney was, they likely have a lot of dirty Russian money that flowed into there during the 2008 financial crisis.
Okay.
And Britney's hired 2 people from the Mueller investigation, and that's not an accident.
Now, was that Britney hiring them, or was that Britney's estate conservator?
No, it's on Rosengard's team.
Okay, all right.
I know you just found my account pretty recently.
Like 4 days ago, we booked so fast.
Yeah.
Like one thing I felt like it was really like moving for me when you corrected me when I was talking about rabbit holes and like you're like a guide and like comparing your work to BJ's work. The first thing was you were like, it's not rabbit holes, it's skydiving over superstructures.
Yeah. So the court analysis serves its purpose and its role. I think it's important for people to have that kind of knowledge. By using legalese, these court mechanisms and the law becomes exclusive, so I think that kind of education is great. For me, it's very hard for people to see the connect between how this all happened and how they've used classism against Brit's family. Because not that they're not guilty. I mean, they're her family of origin, she deeply cared about them. So that betrayal is super terrible. Yet they're not the ones who are doing these big time deals to do capital investment for the Las Vegas residency.
Sure. Part of me, if I dig real deep, some of me wants to have a little tiny bit of sympathy for James being $40,000 in debt and having this moment of desperation and realizing that he could use his daughter as collateral to come out of the debt and possibly like capitalize on the entire circumstance in every way. And I imagine he saw himself, clean and healthy and enjoying his life at this point based on the crazy things that they decided to do. But I don't really actually have that sympathy. I have to make it up. I have to really dig deep for like what would the negative space that it would be in, like what would that look like? And sucks to be in debt, but
right. And when you have a gambling addiction, right, that's something that could certainly happen. And Brittany said he's not smart, and so I believe he was used as a tool for other people. And the real Svengalis of the whole thing, their name really isn't directly on any of the paperwork. It's the same thing like with Al Capone, like he was kind of, or John Gotti, they're kind of untouchable because there's no paper trail. Lou Taylor really is a front person. Not that she's not terrible. It's that her career was propped up because of the success of Piece of Me. That's what took her next level. That's when she started getting the big business industry awards and such. So when we think about how the con was instituted, sure, he got a $40,000 loan. Yet when the lawyers who set up the con, they charged the estate approximately $32,000, but they waived that. They said, oh no, she's in the con now, you don't have to pay for that. But then they billed her for like over $100,000 of legal fees subsequently. And a lot of that just doesn't line up the mainstream narrative. And, we have that journalist Nick say he's an expert in Britney, and I really don't believe so.
Well, some of it is confusing for people too, because they're like, why is there still court cases happening if she's been released from the conservatorship? And the simple nature of the fact that it's all financial at this point, and like they get to continue justifying charging because they're still like they have to come to things, they're on a schedule. It's just so bizarre. Like I look at these numbers and I'm like, they really like just what, like Britney's mom is trying to get $1 million almost covered in legal fees from. It blows my mind. I can't even put the words together to like how are they even justifying continuing to ask for the judge's time, let alone each other's time? And they could have just not tried to kidnap and traffic her, and that would have been free to just leave her alone.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know.
I have 2 points following up on what you're saying. Is my court case. So in 2005, we filed a court case, which was weird because the police actually found the hidden camera in our stockroom. So we would change clothes back there. It was a lease space in a department store. So we didn't work for the department store. We worked for a cosmetics counter. And we only found out about it because you're not supposed to fraternize with security. Well, one of the girls from the Estee Lauder counter went on a date with a guy from security. They got drunk and he's like, tell them to stop changing clothes back there.
Whoa.
Because there's a hidden camera, right?
Dang.
And so no police charges ever. And then our case took 2 years to go to trial. The defense rested. Like we presented all our evidence and they didn't present anything. We never got information about when the camera was installed or when it was ordered or anything. And so we together, there was 4 of us, almost won like $800,000.
Wow.
Which is wild, right? But at the same time,
congratulations, good. That you
no, it wasn't enough money. It really messed up my life.
Okay.
Because I got $180,000, but the lawyers took 80 of it. Right? The department store was going to appeal, but then they ended up settling with us because the interest on the damages accumulated monthly, right? So compounded interest, it would end up being a lot more money very quickly. And then my other statement, so that's why I'm just skeptical. I tell people, like, whatever Alex from Black Box turned over to Rosengart, that's a drop in the bucket. There's got to be so much more because we know her communications were basically monitored the whole time.
Right.
And that's why I'm skeptical. And the statute of limitations on money laundering, financial crimes is much higher, right? Trafficking people across state lines, right? Because the conservatorship was in California, and then Caesars required her to stay in it in Nevada. And then you also have wire fraud, which has a statute of limitations of 10 years. So who knows how long it will take for them to discover any financial crimes, if there allegedly are any.
My question is just how long is it going to take to link the Kardashians?
Let's table Kardashians because I have a whole theory about their relationship to the con.
Okay.
So Rebellion Sparkles, she's very active on Breathe Heavy, which is that Britney fan website. And she just joined Twitter, but she's works in investments, Wall Street kind of stuff. And she said that, she told me this forever ago, like in 2010, Judge Reva Goetz changed the accounting standards that they had to report to the court. So instead of reporting Britney's net income, they had to report Britney's net cash. And she says, insofar as accounting terms, there's no such thing as net cash, because then you don't have an accounting of how all of Britney's income was used to pay other people before it
Right.
was used to pay Britney. So
Right.
we don't have any of that information, and a recent legal filing said that there's malfeasance going on in 2010.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there.
Okay, let's step it back. Let's go to square one, and can you define, please, mainly for me, because I have an understanding
Sure.
to some degree of what private equity is, but I would love for you to tell me what it is, like I don't know anything about it, and why it is important.
Okay, like I said, Rebellion Sparkles is my person. Private equity is basically like very opaque financial investments. A lot of times they will buy debt laden businesses and then they do long term investing. So, debt laden businesses, and they reconfigure them, sell stuff, etc., and then years later they'll sell at a profit. So the other distinguishing things would be like hedge funds, which would be publicly traded businesses, right? So they have a board of directors. A lot more of their financial transactions are public. And then you have venture capital, which is money pouring into smaller businesses to scale them to be bigger businesses. Now, private equity is very opaque, and a lot of people on Wall Street already think that there's a lot of dirty money in private equity because they're not really accountable to anybody.
Hmm.
And so she told me I have a tiny group of influential fans in Wall Street that are hedge fund people, which is hilarious to me, because they really do believe that, because I've tracked private equity's moves in relationship to Britney's career, really does demonstrate that there was malfeasance going on insofar as her being ensnared by the private equity firms, particularly TPG Capital, and then Apollo co-owned Caesars with TPG. It gets confusing because you have the businesses and then you have who owns the percent of the businesses and whether they're private businesses or publicly traded companies.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, CAA and TPG went public this year. So now you can buy stock on the exchanges.
Do you think there was a strategy behind them doing that this year? Is that something that they may have planned already, or do you think they were prompted to because of changes in their ability to keep secrets?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I would have to ask Rebellion about that.
Cool. Okay, so as far as the players and companies involved, let's talk about TPG, Apollo, Caesar, and the Palms.
Okay.
Those are kind of like where like more commonly people are able to understand what those companies are because they have stages, like they're meant to be viewed to some degree, right?
And it matters when people own what and what percent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a controlling stake, that is very important. So Apollo and TPG bought Caesars in 2006, but it was not finalized until 2008, and boom, financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
People have said that TPG buying Caesars is one of the worst private equity moves of all time. So they were drowning, right? And Nevada was the hardest hit state in the country. Even so, you had all these houses get foreclosed on. In the United States, I think the national average was like 25%. Well, in Nevada, it was 60%.
Whoa.
So we're talking financial devastation with no end in sight. I couldn't even find a waitressing job in 2008. It was really bad.
Wow. Wait, and you're in Nevada? That's your...
No. Just where I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time.
Oh, wow.
It was the financial crisis was bad, and we don't talk about it enough. We'll never learn about it in school.
Right.
How horrible things really were. So Caesars is in crisis, and they basically, because they could secure Britney coming to Vegas, and Vegas had been a legacy market. So people were playing back catalogs, you know, Elvis, tons of hits, tons of songs, not really on the radio anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Celine Dion.
There were like a lot of impersonators too, doing performances, I think, at that time. Am I misremembering that?
Oh no, there you know, cover bands, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's totally reversed.
Right.
Right? Everybody will do residencies there now.
Britney was the first.
Larry Rudolph, I've seen him in news reports say that Piece of Me was planned 3 to 5 years ahead of its starting in 2013. When they announced Piece of Me, they were out in the desert and there was all these Britney lookalikes. He said they planned it 2 years ahead, which would be 2011. So the big move is, I think it's basically like Britney was traded like a commodity between the Maloofs and the Azovs. The Maloofs were forced to sell the Palms because it was heavily in debt, and they sold it to TPG and Leonard Green and Partners. They only kept 2%. Now, Jamie Spears, and I don't know how much more patience I have to say this. He had multiple jobs with the Maloofs in 2008.
I don't even know.
I don't know how many. I don't know why people don't care.
Amazing. Well, I didn't know. So, what kind of jobs? What were? Man. Okay. So let's step it back. First, let's talk for a sec about those jobs, and then let's define who the Maloofs are, because I also just kind of recently learned who they are and what they're about.
Okay, so in 2006, he starts it's some kind of home poker computer hosting thing. I cannot find, I only found a couple press releases about it. John DeCastro kind of headed up the tech part, and it's still on his LinkedIn. So they launched it to the Palms. That's the picture you always see. If you look, there's cups that say Palms on it. You know, the one of her and her dad sitting at a booth. Like, you'll see that picture everywhere. But they cut off the part where it says what they are. Even some pictures blur the cups, which is hilarious.
Weird.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
not
strange.
really, but like, there's so many weird things. There's so many like "thou doth protest too much" or like "y'all didn't even need to say anything at all" moments with this.
Yeah.
Just attract negative attention and analysis because they tried
Well,
to
there's
hide.
there's clearly a smear campaign against her. When I was doing all those copy pastes, because I was just like, how else can it's like leaflets dropping into occupied France during World War II. I'm just like, come on, people, get the message. You know.
Yeah.
So he had that business with them. He worked on the Maloof Money Cup, which was a skateboarding competition. He has 2 profiles on IMDb. One has like the Framing Britney Spears on it, because if you have archival footage, you'll still be on IMDb as like making an appearance. And his second IMDb shows that he was an executive assistant and something else for the years 2008 and 2009. If I could only find him on video. That's the thing. People don't believe me till I have videos or something. I don't think people like to read. They like to multitask, so you can't read and do other things. So that's part of the reason.
That is, yeah, that's some of it. Some of it too, I think, is that people are just so oversaturated with data. Like, I was making memes for a while where I'd find pictures of like geese getting prepared to be foie gras, and like I would like relabel it so the goose was like us, the masses, and then like the tube is the data, and then like the mainstream media is the hand feeding it to us. And I feel like this kind of stuff, there's like a misinterpretation that it's superficiality or something to consider these types of industries. I don't really get that. There's so much money in it, so many people and like things that it takes to put on even just one show.
Right. And all I have to tell people is minimum wage is labor exploitation. Just think that way.
People they can't see that though, because in there, I mean, that then you add the element of fear to things, or like a fear that people don't even want to start engaging the process of processing. Because if they really were to recognize that, then they would have to accept that we are in a state of slavery advanced. It's just evolved and been rebranded.
Yeah, it's indentured servitude. I think of it more so. But
Yeah,
then you're never, money is freedom, unfortunately. You
absolutely.
know, and because Brittany was technically indigent, no access to cash, nothing. Like she was
Mm-hmm.
technically resourceless.
Yeah,
Um, you know, the prison of the castle, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard because I get pushback from people who think I don't think she's free. I do. I just think, and this will make more sense. I think part of her investigation is classified, and once I get more into the Russian connection, you'll understand why. Uh, and I think she has to couch her words very carefully. I
Mm-hmm.
have sent everything I've done to Rosengart. Who knows if it's helpful, but I'm just I the reason conspiracy theories proliferate is twofold. One, can't trust the powers that be to report the truth, and they don't like context, and they like hype and buzz. What do they call them? Buzz statements.
Mm-hmm. Hot words,
And then two,
Bernaysian phrasing.
outrageous conspiracy theories are introduced into online communities. So many people are anonymous by nefarious forces. It's not that expensive to hire a bunch of trolls
Yo,
or bots, and who knows who
yeah,
these people are,
yeah.
like, or
And you,
what their interests are.
I know for a fact, and this not on the internet, but because of my experience with Occupy, you can get trolls mobilized essentially for free, really, like it at like really reduced cost, because a lot of the time it's just easy to find people that are in a position where they can be exploited because of their baseline psychology, and
Yeah.
they devalue themselves. They see themselves as not really worthy of much of anything, and so all it might take is a bottle of whiskey to get them to completely carry a message into a community and
Yeah,
fight
I
for that
think
message.
some of these people that propped up Jason Alexander, they really are well intentioned. They are, but intent does not mean that you used your critical faculties or that what you're doing is actually helpful. I'm a social worker by training,
Mm.
and so much of social work is about controlling poor people
Well,
that you see that all the time. Like, I know what's better for you in your life. And it's like,
mm,
it was a very hard field to be in because they act as extensions of the criminal justice system in a lot of ways.
yeah, gosh, what a way to say it. So simple.
I hope so. I'm really getting exhausted by all this, and I need to move on with my life. Um, I had
I
brain.
hope to help encapsulate the work that you've done in a way that it's preserved and available for people to be served without you having to carry it on your back.
Oh yeah, I had brain surgery on June 1st, and so I was really depressed until I could have that, and this really gave me a lot of motivation and meaning in my life. I have a daughter, yes, she's awesome, but intellectually, I really felt lost. I'm in the 7th year of my PhD program, and I've really run into a lot of issues finishing
Mm,
for various reasons. Um, so I really believe in my work. It's all fact based. I've gotten validation from a lot of people, but there's censorship going on.
mm-hmm.
And so some of these conspiracy theories are wild. And usually it's so much more boring than people think
Mm-hmm.
because we know people like the buzz, the hype. So when I just say, no, it's a long term, slow plan, and then this happened, and then this happened, people zone out. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and so I find that when I use stuff, Britney was kidnapped from her house, which she was,
Yeah.
for the second 5150.
Mm-hmm.
That LAPD chief is connected to Asaph, who's connected to the Kardashians and Britney now. So this is why I lose people, because it people are like, Hollywood's a small town, and I'm like, it ain't that small. The only reason I know
People
who
move
any
to
of
Hollywood for reasons. It's not just it really is not a small town. And then Hollywood, LA is so much bigger than what LA actually is. Like
right,
I'm about to go down there, and so I've been looking at maps, and I'm like, where do I want to put my body in, like the hotel or the Airbnb or whatever that I start with, so that I can get to all the places that I'm trying to be at. And it's sprawling and massive, and Topanga Canyon and Laurel Canyon are like huge pockets in and of themselves. People just don't even know what they're talking about. They think Disneyland when they think of Hollywood. They think of like small theme parks,
right.
Sunset Strip or whatever, like
Well, they
Rodeo
think it's
Drive.
small too, because if your parents are famous, the probability that you'll get a cush job or be famous too is like 99.99% higher than the general population.
Sure, that I guess, yeah, people are conflating small town energy with nepotism. Like that's
Yeah,
cute.
I didn't know who any of these people were that I'm talking about. I don't watch reality TV. I don't read trade magazines until I started doing all this.
You
And
mentioned
it's
you
not,
weren't a Britney fan, that you were into like underground music, and that pop
yeah,
was like not your
she's
thing.
like, uh, we're the exact same age. And so when she came out, I was like, oh, corporate, you know,
Mm-hmm.
bog. And it was a time, right? 9/11 happens, and you're just kind of like, all these people, almost everyone in Congress voted for the war in Iraq. And it was really wild, because all you had to do is read non-American English newspapers, and the evidence for invading Iraq was never there. And so, I started going to anti-globalization rallies in the early 2000s and such like that. So you can't escape pop culture, but it's something to dance to, not think about.
Mm. There was a distinct divide between the ideas of pop culture and the ideas of like activism and politics, and we're really pushing into a phase where the information is disallowing that segregation, and it's really like showing the weave and tapestry of how it's all one blanket, one suppressive blanket.
Right.
um
Cultural hegemony, they allow for dissent,
right.
right? But they contain it.
Yeah.
And what you'll see, the most radical people, they tend to die very young. Like
Mm-hmm.
what Tupac was talking about was real. I mean, he talked about against the war in Iraq, all this stuff. Yes, he was saying homophobic, sexist things. But to me, being anti-war was more important than all that. Because
Hmm.
all those people are dying over there. They wouldn't even do body counts, and people are like, abroad, they're like, there's been 1 million deaths and children deformed from radioactive decay. And you know what I mean? So all I'm saying is
All
that
right.
that just wasn't, it was just like, people are dying and no one cares. So I came into this because I had my first mental breakdown in 2007, and the way she was positioned
Mm.
was denigrating people with mental health issues. And, my court case, and my dad's a soldier who went to Afghanistan, all that stuff worked together. You have your psychotic break, and then you're crazy forever.
Mm.
And you just have this feeling that the culture hates you. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt a lot of empathy with her, and I don't think anyone I know could even, like, I identified with her more than anybody. So there's like this weird loyalty there. And then once I saw Framing Britney Spears, I was like, I just thought she didn't want to talk about it. I was like, respect those boundaries. I
Mm.
always thought the conservatorship was weird, but I didn't know she didn't have freedom of speech, and I felt terrible. So I was kind of like, oh, she could have, she could be like the great person to like change mental health stigma, etc. And I felt bad for judging her for not doing that.
Mm.
Even though it doesn't matter if she had a diagnosis or not, it's the perception she did that enslaved her, right? So it
I don't
never
know that
mattered
she
her.
does she have a diagnosis at all? They've changed it in the rhetoric a
Uh,
few times.
yeah, it really doesn't matter. And Britney versus Spears should have never read her medical records on TV.
Sure.
It never mattered because whatever it was besides the dementia thing,
Oh, right.
whatever it
That was the
was
diagnosis.
was the diagnosis used to justify it, which is interesting because they used mental health stigma to justify the conservatorship, but at the same time they hid the dementia thing. And no journalists I started all this looking at old news articles and going through the archives.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was like, hey, there's like this short-term temporary conservatorship for like mental health. You reevaluate in a year.
Mm-hmm.
No journalists talked about that, which is wild.
Right.
Because if you think about the ideology, we can't have America's princess, saying fuck the system, hanging out with Afghani immigrants. Oh my gosh. Like, people don't understand. Like, back then, no one really was online too much except the young millennials. Oh, well, we are geriatric millennials.
How dare you?
Actually,
No, you're right.
we started it. We started the millennial stuff. So many of us, we didn't even have TV. We were just on the internet and rented DVDs. So this whole
Yeah.
thing, we were all like, what the fuck? People are dying, and this is like the new OJ case. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Whoa.
And
Yo, OJ's case though, that was like a nutshell.
yeah, but I lived in South Korea on a military base,
Wow.
and
Okay.
it was breaking news. We never even got live TV except for when OJ was on the Bronco. I was like,
Wow.
it was that big. And
Speaking of the
everything's
Kardashians, wait. Okay, sorry, moving on again.
the reason they think Robert Kardashian hadn't been an acting attorney for a long time, but he reinstituted his license because then he wouldn't have to testify against OJ.
Oh, heck. Whoa, and see,
Yeah.
I was in my mind, I had this question where I was like, would Robert Kardashian be rolling in his grave over what is happening in his lineage now, or
Hell no, he love it.
right? That you just answered my question. It was like one or the other. He's either going to be very, very into it, or it's the
Just go look at him and be like, tell me he's not like a coming up from a 70s gangster.
he
His
does have that look.
family. I actually even listened to a Kardashian's book for this shit.
Who?
And his family ran like a whole network of like trash disposal in Beverly Hills.
Whoa.
Trash is affiliated with the mafia. They also did meatpacking, affiliated with the mafia because it's easy to control that entire service or industry in a given locality. So the mafia loves that shit.
Well, there's also like technologies involved with both of those industries that can be used for other types of like cleanup work.
Yeah, disposing of
right
bones you don't need. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Either one, right? Like,
yeah, it's all biohazard, whether it's whatever kind of mammal it's coming from. It's all just
people yeah, sure. Jimmy Hoffa just disappeared. Okay.
Oh no.
Like I tell people, this is, and Robert Kardashian had some ties to some music stuff. He's really actually pretty hard to find information out about.
Yeah, that's where I was questioning things because the information I have found is like 70% PR of his own making, and his kids and ex-wife haven't touched his name since they've been they've talked about him like twice in by research. And it was all years and years and years ago, like 10, 15, 20 years ago or something.
Yeah, Irving Azoff, the Azoff family goes way back with the Kardashians to when Robert Kardashian was around. So Irving Azoff, manager of the Eagles, he is kind of known for representing bands that created the 1970s California sound. And he is somehow tied into how 2007, the rise of the Kardashians coincides with the fall of Britney. Like, there's no getting around that.
Right.
And the Palms Casino is focused on the first season of the Kardashians.
Mm-hmm.
Palms Casino is in the first. Yeah, I made a reel about it somewhere. I'll send it to you.
Wow.
People don't understand how big the Palms was. I mean, it was like the celebrity hotspot. So the Maloofs are heirs to Coors distribution empire, Coors Beer. Now, they are maybe a generation ahead of me, so in their 60s-ish, 5 kids. Anyone who inherited an alcohol empire in the 20th century, 1900s, they're tied to the mafia because of Prohibition. There's no way around that. You'll see. If you go look when they were founded, it'll be like 1936. You know, it's never when Prohibition actually was going on.
Right. Okay, yeah.
George Maloof is the youngest one, I believe. And, there was rumors of him and Britney dating. He was one of the first people that was photographed with her post-con by the paparazzi. Okay, and I meant to mention Adrienne Maloof, his sister. Jamie Spears was her personal chef in 2008, late 2007. Okay. Her husband is, what's his name? He's a plastic surgeon on the TV show Botched. And he even says that Jamie Spears was their personal chef, which is funny. And let me tell you, I posted that, in the reel I posted, he says, she'd even come over for Christmas. I know the whole family. And Britney had posted soon thereafter. And I'm not saying, I have reason to believe she does see some of my stuff for various reasons. And she was like, remember Christmas? And it was a post where she was like, I'm going to go lay under a tree so my family remembers I'm a present or something.
Yeah.
And they have been completely erased from the narrative. And so Adrienne Maloof started on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which started in 2011, and she was on for a few seasons. You'll see the Palms Casino on the first episode or third. You'll also see that they own the Sacramento Kings. Now, Sacramento is the capital of California. And Ron Artest played for the Sacramento Kings starting in 2005. Lou Taylor signed him as one of her big first higher profile clients in 2005. Okay. And he played for the Sacramento Kings for 2 years and left in 2007. Went on to play for the Lakers, winning a championship ring with them in 2010 or 11. Now, I've seen, Jamie met Lou at church. I've seen people really believe that Jamie met Lou at church. No, I think that Jamie, through his business and family relationship with the Maloofs, met Lou Taylor through the Maloofs, who own the Sacramento Kings, who Ron Artest played for. Now, he's changed his name a couple times. So he's been Meta World Peace, Meta Sandy Ford Artest, etc. So he was a talented player, and he also had a lot of public backlash and people calling him crazy, etc., because he was infamous for the Malice in the Palace. This was a game between the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Pistons, I think. It was definitely the Pacers, where he went into the stands to fight fans because someone threw a drink at him, which I think is legit, but it turned into a whole melee. See what I mean? It gets really confusing really fast because I wanted to know. I was like, how did Jamie meet Lou? And you'll find a 2005 article in GQ magazine that talks about Lou Taylor being Ron Artest's guru, and the title of the article is Free Ron Artest.
Oh, weird.
I'm like, did they change that bitch?
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, there was Free Winona, whatever, but
sure. I mean, a lot of celebrities are subject. The person is enslaved to the brand, and the concern for that varies depending on what kind of headlines are coming out about their either behavior or who's around them doing what to them, what kind of work opportunities they have. There's so many different ways that this gets cut.
Yeah. And so he had faced a lot of public backlash, so I think they sent him to a lower profile team, Sacramento Kings, just kind of waiting out the drama until he could go play for the Lakers.
And
I don't know why that's not mainstream knowledge. Like, I don't give a fuck if people are like, oh, Melanie came up with that. I'm just like, how... If you don't mention the Maloofs, the Azofs, or Ron Artest, I don't trust you.
I imagine a lot of it is that people hit an end of the line on certain players because, like, Lou Taylor engenders a lot of attention. She's got, she purposefully occupies space pretending to be a shadow figure while actively calling herself a spokesperson. And putting her face on camera.
Like, but no one who was ever the mastermind of the con would be photographed at the hospital, on TV, or photographed at her fucking house. Okay,
they're certainly never ever gonna book an appearance on like Good Morning America.
Yeah, she's a front. Like, I think she's a terrible person, and she needs to be held accountable. Just saying she's a front and an enforcer, exerting power and control over Britney's life, that doesn't negate anything she does by saying, oh, she's not the fucking mastermind. Irving Azoff had Brian Wilson in a conservatorship. I mean, he released a record with him shortly after Brian Wilson was put in a conservatorship in the 90s on Giant Records. It's not like Irving Azoff hasn't worked with other clients who were in conservatorships.
Okay, so this is, I think we should do a separate episode on this, but I do want to like address this topic. I had somebody on the show yesterday who, he posed the question of if there have ever been any men in conservatorships, and I mentioned Bam Margera, because he's the only one that I know of, but you've just knocked a hole in my wall. There's so many more, apparently, if it goes back to the 90s and you're...
Yeah, if you're just talking about famous people, they're not as prominent, but on the grand scale of things, there's tons. I mean, I don't know the racial or gender divide on that, but
I would imagine it's probably a lot of non-celebrities. Certainly, I would assume, this is absolutely my theory, that a huge percentage of white men, probably at least on paper cishet white men who have aged out of being in a position where they can control the narrative in their lineage, their kids or other people will step in. So I think a heavy percentage of overall conservatorships probably are elder men. But
we should do a super cut of just white hetero cis men fighting with paparazzi, like fist fighting, and like they're not in conservatorships. Okay.
Yeah. Toby Maguire almost ran some people over one time, and I was like, like rooting for him. I was like, you should just floor it. Like they're blocking your car, you can't see. I don't understand. I don't understand how they are legally allowed to do what they're doing. It's sanctified harassment and assault.
Yeah.
Like undeniably
And
bizarre.
well, and they also, they wouldn't do it if it didn't make them money. But people are conditioned to think that that's news. Celebrities, they're just like us. They're eating a hot dog, but it's like they're not just like us because no one fucking wants to see us take pictures of our food on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Well,
people
that's
don't think like
arguable. I don't know.
that.
There seems to be an audience for any fetish.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like it's
This-
non-consensual mukbang. Like at least a third of the time, with
yeah.
paparazzi pictures, they're just trying to get people in some kind of like weird. Like everybody does
Well,
this face every day, but we don't get to see these people doing this face because they only want us to see pretty pictures. And
well, and it also caters to people's sadistic tendencies, right? To watch people suffer.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, what else do you want to know about? Like, what are your reflections?
Man, I guess I mean so with the with the complicated nature, it's like there's so many players involved. There's different companies involved. There's different individuals from all kinds of demographics. Some publicly known, some not publicly known. Um, do you have theories about? Do you have theories about like where all this is going to end up heading? Because it was like what 2 weeks ago, like the "are we deposing Jamie and Lou" kind of talk was like they're gonna have to get deposed, and
Sure.
whatever it is that ends up coming out from that. I mean, I don't know. There's gonna be some fall person. There's gonna be a scapegoat at some point, and like, do you think that will be successful? Do you think they're gonna remain in some kind of control of the narrative and stay
I'm not concerned about Lou or Jamie being held accountable.
right?
Now, with RICO cases, they don't fucking announce the investigation. They say, okay, boom, 50 indictments today. You're welcome.
Okay,
So
define the
that's what
RICO investigations. Break that
that
down.
has been my inkling the whole time, is that it's a big amount of money. So let me wrap up TPG real fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll come back to Caesars. TPG buys 35% of CAA in 2010. They up it to a controlling stake at 53% in 2014. Yeah, let's do another episode just on Live Nation and Azov, okay?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
let's just say TPG, they bought off her daddy's business partners, the Malus. 2, owned Caesars. 3, owned CAA. So a lot of people come after CAA, and I'm like, bitch, owns them. Okay, so that drives me mad. Because there's good people in corrupt institutions, whatever. So, TPG and Apollo owned Caesars. Apollo, the head of Apollo, is Leon Black, one of the richest people in the world. He's worth $10 billion. And he gave Jeffrey Epstein $158 million and cannot explain why. Okay? And so, TPG's head is David Bonderman. Bonderman and Leon Black were on the board of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, which started in 2011. This was basically Vladimir Putin's slush fund. So they're on the board. David Bonderman, they invade Crimea. Russia does in 2014. The ruble collapses. So there's this weird shift in money, right? You want to get Russian money out of Russia, or that money collapsed, and then soon after the ruble collapse, Caesars files for bankruptcy. Now, what Caesars was like selling its businesses to itself to make it look like they had money when they did not. They bought Caesars, and the debt they used to buy Caesars becomes the debt of Caesars. Doesn't that sound so confusing? It's like they just move shit around. But someone else owned the debt, and they were so pissed at Apollo and TPG, who owned all of Caesars, that by the end of the bankruptcy, 2 years later, they ended up only owning like 16% of Caesars. And Caesars is worth billions of dollars. So they really fucked up. They were tied to Russian dirty money. And, you know, Bonderman, after the invasion of Crimea, he's like, invest in Russia. It's great. War is good for investment. You know, it's like, fuck you, man. War's not good. And so that's that. That makes sense?
Yeah, and I don't know where this question's emerging from, but how many of these players, do you have any awareness of these players being involved in Michael Jackson's situation, if you will?
I have Michael Jackson really needs, I don't know if you've seen my connection map. It's on my website. That's in my link in bio. It's very exhaustive. Michael Jackson is on there.
Okay.
He needs his own connection map. I didn't know anything. I mean, it's just wild. His family does not control his estate.
Isn't that wild? Yeah, with a busted will that isn't even reasonable. Like he's someone.
Yeah, it's so wild. It's shocking.
Yeah,
that was allowed to happen. Now, the president of AEG Live is connected to Michael Jackson. And guess who was featured on, for the record, Britney's 2008 documentary? He's there. I can't remember his name. Randy Phillips. He is there because they did the circus tour, not Live Nation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of sketchy stuff there. I don't have the time. I don't understand the Michael Caine Connect. I wish Michael Jackson stands would do a connection map, because then the puzzle pieces fit. I mean, Tupac's on mine. Courtney Love's on mine. You know, there's a lot of... Legit. I mean, Courtney Love, the Cabana State was stolen from her.
Huh.
Okay, I don't know when you want me to stop talking.
Yo, I mean, well, so, I mean, I think we could wrap this episode up. There's so many, we could follow any line of this. Like it's a huge, it's a superstructure, the whole thing, and it's tied into other superstructures. But I think the bottom line, the important thing, like regardless of whether or not people kind of like kept up with every little thing that we talked about here, or if they got lost somewhere early on, but just like the sound of our voices and made it to the end, or anything in between that spectrum of process. There was something you said the other day that like the essence of it was basically that capitalism is designed to extract from the creation of wealth. And the importance of, at least like in any new like lesson, or anytime there's new information, there can be a bit of a learning curve where you kind of just have to saturate yourself in what's happening, and eventually you start to pick up on different parts of it. Things just make sense. They bake into your reality, and fall into place. And so I think just kind of hanging in there is like a very important element of this. But also recognizing that, like, you know, it's like when we're considering things of this magnitude, it can become very overwhelming, like we're watching a tsunami come at us. But it really isn't that way. Like, it's like every metaphor has to be applied. We can like turn that tsunami into a mountain and dissolve it or move it with the faith of mustard seeds, and that happens all the time right now.
Why did the tsunami happen, though? Was it a butterfly flapping its wings, or did the levee break? Okay,
right.
So this is what I tell people
on purpose.
It's because the secrecy involved: secret court hearings, secret documents, secret business transactions, secret origin of capital investment that went into Caesars. So all these secrets. The reason I was able to figure it out because I tracked relationships.
Right.
Right.
That's where it's important. Yeah.
It's all publicly available information. I have no insider information.
Right.
And at the end of the day, this is the same class of people that exploits us all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why are the economic disparities are higher than ever? I did not really even remember seeing so many people living on the street when I was young, like even 25.
Yeah.
You know, so it's only getting worse. And that's what I try to communicate to to people who are skeptical of pop culture, who are skeptical of Trump. This it's not even that hard to tie these people to the Russian backdoor that Trump's administration was establishing with Vladimir Putin. Like,
Sure.
this is legacy generational wealth.
Yeah. And not to mention the Kardashians again, but I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who was trying to explain what the Trump family is and compared them to the equivalent of the Kardashians before pop culture technology had invented reality television.
Well, and there's this podcast called The World Beneath. And when they broke up the 5 mafia families in New York City, the Gambinos controlled all of construction in Manhattan. Well, Trump's dad wasn't allowed to build in Manhattan because he was with the Genovese family in one of the boroughs, right? But then Trump got like the Gambinos' permission to build in Manhattan. And when they broke up the families, they used wiretaps. And the name of Trump's business is all over those wiretaps. So we're talking legacy mafia there. And that's the thing, is people don't understand all rich people are socially liberal. They don't care. They're, you know, sex trafficking, drugs, all that. They do not care as long as it's money.
Right.
And that's why it seems like Republicans, oh, they're hypocrites. It's like, no, they're not. They're catering to their market, right? You specialize, but you control the whole market.
Right.
So I could go on forever and ever.
Yo, I could too. Yeah. Mentorship legacies are.
Yeah, I mean, even how Brian Spears got his job at Philo. It was only 10 days after Christy Hefner, Hugh Hefner's daughter, joined the board. Well, there's a Playboy Club in the Palms Casino.
Oh, all right.
The reality show shot at the Palms multiple times, The Girl Next Door. Yeah. And, like, what's her name? Heidi... Whatever, I've never seen her mention the Maloofs, but all you have to go, Getty Images is the best to find old images.
That's what's up. Cool. Well, okay, so plug your locations where people can find information.
I am Mx Defying on Twitter and Instagram, MX_DEFYING. There's a link to my website that has all my big documents on there. I have a whole tab on my website just for Britney stuff. And I have, you know, a 25-minute article where I write out the major players that I've identified in the con. I have a immersive timeline. You can download a desktop app to look through it. Everything's sourced, original documents, hyperlinked, etc. There's 500 entries. I have a connection map, everything's sourced, hyperlinked. If you zoom out, it looks like the fucking world map. It's huge. And people have to be on there multiple times or you would not be able to look through the lines. And then I just have like a timeline table. So I try to cater to every learning style. I have some YouTube videos. I'm not that good at videos. And yeah, I'm living for the day this breaks in the mainstream media because, like, I know it will. Someone told me it's going to be 10 years, and I'm like, I cannot wait. I'm going to have a heart attack in the next year if it doesn't break.
I don't think
so. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. Where can people give you money for all of your labor that you're doing? Do you have a Cash App? Do you have a Venmo?
I I don't know it. I never
Ah,
use it.
all
But
right.
like I've always
Send it
felt
to me
like
later, and we're gonna put it in the notes. As
I feel weird doing that because people have used her name to make money, and I if anyone wants to give me freelance writing gigs, I'll do that. How about that?
okay, that's fair. I like it. I one thing that I am really enjoying now that I have eh, like immersed myself in the scene of I'm just calling it the freedom movement at this point, which is interesting because some other people are trying to co-opt that term. I don't know if they're on actually a different track than I am, but they seem like they're saying different things. But the ethics that I'm finding in people that are like there's a devotion to getting information clarified and making sure that we're speaking from an authenticated space. And like a lot of the time, it's very difficult to figure out what ways to ask for value from like that feedback to kind of compensate that effort.
Right,
Um,
right. I was very motivated by justice, but yeah, it's
I'm
hard.
motivated to make sure you got food. I'm motivated to make sure that's. I love
I got student loans.
That's what's up. That yeah, cover your loans, whatever it is. Because the thing about this kind of stuff is it's people that are figuring out how to pull energy from the world. Because currency, money is whatever. It's about our time. It's about our relationships, and so they're able to kind of get a narrative going that's about money and put themselves in positions where they're very much enjoying how they spend their time, and they get to be even if they're not internally enjoying it on the surface, they're on solar powered yachts and drinking $100 drinks, and like I don't see a reason why we shouldn't kind of consider how we can take care of each other. We don't have to escalate to the point where we're trying to do like a Bezos solar powered yacht that can't fit through the canals that it was built in to get into the open ocean. But we can take care of each other, I think.
Yeah, whenever I see like $25 million mansion, 10 bedrooms, I'm like 10. I think there should be like 1,000.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. I
yeah.
don't know. We'll get
So
everything sorted out one way or the other, or we'll die trying.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, we got to build coalition alliances. Know that each other are not the enemy, and
Mm.
the truth is on our side.
And how? Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your work. I really am so glad I found you in the internet.
Oh, I am too. This is cathartic.
Excellent. Great.
It's like free therapy. Okay.
Yeah, that's what's up. Wow. Follow Mx Defying, MX_DEFYING everywhere you can. Follow us, Good Morning Mayberry, everywhere you can also. Check out our website, goodmorningmayberry.com. Click on merch. Grab yourself a little shirt or a mug. Use it to drink the tears of your enemies while you sit and contemplate how you too plan to take over this terrible world and make it a better place. This is Good Morning Mayberry. You've just listened to Mystifying a lot of information around pop culture, economics, and global politics. I don't have anything else to say right now, so that's all I got. I'm your host, Shift, and always remember to never forget. It's not rabbit holes, it's skydiving over superstructures.
Yes, it's very hard for people to see the connect between how this all happened and how they've used classism against Brit's family. Because not that they're not guilty, I mean, they're her family of origin, she deeply cared about them. So that betrayal is super terrible. Yet they're not the ones who are doing these big time deals to do capital investment for the Las Vegas residency.
Would have been free to just leave her alone.
Good Morning Mayberry is brought to you by Amass Studio, LLC.